Hi, I'm Kelly.
And hi, I'm Marianne, and you're
You're
listening
listening
to the
to the
Girlfriend
Girlfriend
God.
God. So let's talk about the Girlfriend God.
Why the Girlfriend God?
Why is it called? Why is it called that? So, I guess the long answer to that question is, that has very much to do with my own personal journey and personal gnosis, I guess. Um, the short version is that first, I have come to use the terms God and goddess interchangeably, right? Which was hard at first. So I use the terms God and goddess interchangeably because I've read some things that, particularly the scripture of our mother God, they don't use the term goddess because to them, to do so implies that there is a God male counterpart. And I don't believe that. So I just call her God. But I'm so used to saying goddess. I like that word. I like the way I like the way it feels in my mouth. I like the way it rolls off my tongue, So that's the first part, the answer to that question. And I guess the second part is that in my journey, I have come to understand that this goddess that I have really can meet all of my needs. So I work with different facets of my goddess, and the Girlfriend God is just one of those facets.
Oh, first I just want to say how I met Kelly was through what I've come to find out was some sort of existential crisis, where we were on a community Zoom call, and I had like this mental breakdown. And you reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called him. We spent forever on the phone, and he said, "You're having an existential spiritual crisis." And then I went on the Dark Night of the Soul that he posted on Moon and Fire, and I was so excited because I recently just come out as a pagan since the onset of the pandemic. So all of this lingo and language and everything was just rushing at me at 100 miles an hour. Kind of really created that it's going to be okay, safe space thing. And, I think that's where our connection began. It's with, you're going to say, the vulnerability piece, where, your Captain V cape went on. And, so that interaction really set my journey in motion to pursue the goddess. It's still evolving for me. I'm still on the cusp, it says all references in the Webster's dictionary. It does not specify sex or gender. I don't know if this makes any sense to segue into this, but it's always assumed that God is a masculine entity. At least that's how I grew up. And
Yes.
so upon, further research, I was on this pathway, this journey of that word alone had always made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So I started to equate God as my truth. Well before I even knew you, just throughout my evolution of spiritual being. So when I heard the word, it would still kind of make me cringe a little bit, but I had to keep bringing myself back to God is truth. So like a blanket statement, but that's not how it's perceived. So when I use goddess, I feel like different, you know, not normal, you know, one of them, oh, one of those people, you know, you freak or Wiccan or, you know. So this, you know, having this kind of cast on this platform, I'm looking really forward to getting some answers to questions I have that I'm pretty sure you have the answers to, and to improve my spiritual journey, because I'm still on the cusp, like mono, poly, like what's going on with that. You and I talk a lot about that, and I'm trying to use that term fluently as well. And there's a prayer that I use that starts with God herself. And I love that. It was the first time I heard that, because it made, you know, it just sounded very fluid. Where it acknowledged both sexes, genders, whatever. So.
Right. I mean, intellectually, I know that our creator is genderless. But in order to forge a personal connection, I needed it to be female.
He already had a father.
Yeah.
You know, and he died. What I needed was a mother.
Yeah. And I still need a mother. And that's one of the reasons I work with goddess and different aspects of that goddess, because I still need that today. You know, the girlfriend god is very, who I call Ellen.
Me too.
The girlfriend god is very, you know, that's very much a romantic context. But when I need to be held and nurtured, like as a little girl, right, which I can revert to in a certain emotional space, then I need that mother. I need the mother.
No, I was just going to talk about divinity and, you know, what.
Yeah, I mean, so when I say goddess, today, when I say goddess, I don't mean a goddess deity or a goddess that's part of a pantheon. I mean like the goddess, right? Who created the world, that primordial goddess that, you know, who existed in the time before time, right? Because she gave birth to the world. I mean, that's what feminine divinity is based in, is the concept that only women can give birth.
This realization that I came to of the feminine divine happened organically.
Yes.
So it wasn't something that, you know, I know it sounds silly to use that analogy as, you know, the children just believe what they're told from the beginning. And I believe that there is so much conflict and separation from such an early aspect of your life, like the first year of life. You're told you have to be baptized, and this, you know, then you go through this whole process, and like this stuff is ingrained in you, and there's no room for anything else. So for me, I really believe that my spiritual malady, my spiritual sickness began very, very early, where there was so much conflict and separation between me and a divine. Not even the divine, a divine.
Right.
I believe it goes back as a 3-year-old. I can remember the feeling of being separated. And I really think that that's the core of where my trauma came from, my addictions came from, you know, and it took a long, long time. It took a long, long time. I mean, a long, long time.
Yeah.
I'm talking like in my 40s, long time.
I wonder when as children, we first, like I was thinking this morning that trying to remember when I first felt like maybe there was something else besides the religion I was raised with.
Mm.
Because I had to be young, right? Because I had to be young because even when I was young, I mean, like earlier than high school, I'd say grade school, maybe 6th, 7th grade, I was interested in, you know, tarot and trances and crystals, and there used to be this kiosk at the mall that had these little pewter figurines, and they were wizards and witches and dragons, and that has always called to me, and I have no explanation for my being drawn to those things other than that's, you know, that was the first clue that I was on this particular path. And it's like our friend Alice says, right? We live our lives forward, but we understand things backward.
Yeah. I used to. My mother had this expectation of after 3 boys having a princess little dress-up doll that you can dress up and everyone would come over and pay homage. You know, when I was out in the yard digging in the dirt, playing with my brother's Matchbox cars in the dirt.
Yeah.
And she hated that. And I would constantly...
I was just going to say, one year for Christmas, my parents bought me a really nice dollhouse, and I was completely uninterested and disappointed. And after that, though, they didn't try and force that on me. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I was already, you know, and being such a huge disappointment.
Well, you also have brothers. I mean, my parents already had a princess. They had my sister. So.
Yeah, and I was the last of 3 boys in this, I was born in 66. So I'm coming through the 70s.
Right.
You know? And so there was several traumatic experiences that I can remember, and not like I want this discussion to be about that. But my mother would always say, why don't you listen to your mother? And she told a story to someone when we were in mixed company. I think I told you this story early on. Mm-hmm. She would yell at me to say, why don't you listen to your mother? And I would go outside and put my ear to the ground and say, I am. And that's when the friggin' lights went off. I remembered that. I remembered coming out the front door of my house, getting on all fours and putting my ear to the ground, and my mother yelling, get off of the ground, you're getting all dirty. And I couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
So there was just a series of events like that would emerge.
I think that for me, like I said, my earliest memories are just being drawn to the occult and all things occult, right? Like we traveled a lot when I was a kid. Like we took a family vacation every year, and whenever we went somewhere that had like a little downtown, if there was any kind of an occult shop, I wouldn't go in any other shops. I would spend my whole time, however long we were in that town, in the occult shop. And I had my first palm reading, I think, when we were in Provincetown in Massachusetts. I think that was the first one. Anyway, so my interest in all things occult I've had since I was young, but I don't really think I started kind of zeroing in on a goddess until, I don't know, I was about 31. So when I was 31, I was driving up 57 in Illinois, and it was raining. And I had started to investigate being a witch because I was starting to feel like that was my path. So, and I did what most people who feel called to do that do, right? I bought Buckland's big book of witchcraft or whatever and just followed all the instructions. Because I like to be given a task and instructions and then just, check those things off a list. So I did whatever that book suggested. And so I'm driving up 57 and it was raining and I'm driving and I'm in a good space, right? Like I feel good. I feel good about what I'm doing and decisions I'm making. And, my job was going well. And I was independent because I left the abusive partner that I was with at the time. And on the side of the road, I saw a woman in a hooded cloak with a lantern.
I could tell you.
And it was there. I mean, it was only there for a second or two, but I know what I saw. That memory for me is very vivid. And when I got home, I wrote it down immediately because I wanted to remember where I was and what time of day it was and all the circumstances. So that was my first real clue, not necessarily about the goddess, I think just following a witch's path, But then I was trying to be Wiccan.
I think everybody starts out
Trying to be Wiccan. Because neo-paganism wasn't what it is now. You know what I mean? There were still only a limited number of paths that you could get information about or whatever. And I would still say that I'm a pagan, only because, the dictionary definition of that is anything other than the three major world religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim. I think this is a really good start.
I had a lot of fun. I can't wait to do this again and again.